and welcome to 5 Frames From. Today I'm talking about 5 frames from Tom Grennan's video for A Little Bit of Love, and this is a set text for anyone studying the Educast Media Studies A-Level. So to begin with some background on Tom Grennan. The song A Little Bit of Love comes from his second studio album called Evering Road and is named after a road in Hackney, London, where he used to live with his girlfriend. The album is a bit of a breakup album because it details the emotions of a breakup, and so Evering Road is quite a special place where this special relationship took place. Because it's about a breakup, the songs on the album feature different emotions and moments that Grennan goes through. And A Little Bit of Love is particularly about sort of the regrets of breaking up with a girl. It's about sort of the mental health of someone recovering from a breakup and wondering if he'll ever get over it without the help of the girl in the first place. This is reflected in the lyrics, and I've put some on the screen for you to look at. This idea of kind of mental health and breakups and getting over things isn't really reflected in the video though, and I'll come on to talk about that in a little while. Before I do though, a little bit more background information. A couple of the songs have got similar locations featured in the videos within a house, which obviously links with the title. And this, along with kind of the look and style of Tom Grennan, help establish him as a star and give him star persona. If we think about it, there are lots of young white males that sing kind of breakup songs and similar songs in the music industry, and Grennan needs to stand out as being someone quite different. One of the things that makes Tom Grennan stand out is his voice. On his website, his voice is described as emotional and careworn, with a rasp of devilment and mischief. So this establishes him as someone who's a little bit cheeky, but also someone who's emotional and feels things deeply. The video for A Little Bit of Love is performance-based and narrative-based. This links back to Andrew Goodwin's theory, but the performance itself really helps to reinforce this idea of his rasping voice and creates this kind of tone and style and mood for the video of him being so in love. Now that he's broken up with the girl, he kind of feels desperate. As I say, the narrative tells a different story in the video, so we'll come on to that in a minute. The song A Little Bit of Love was extremely popular. It reached number 7 in the UK charts and stayed there for a number of weeks. And in fact, I was in a shop a little while ago and this song came on, and at least 4 or 5 people were singing the song as they were doing their shopping. This goes to show that the song, the lyrics, the tune is extremely catchy and something that's well known amongst audiences. Okay, so there is a lot more we can say about the background of Tom Grennan, and I would suggest that you go away and do a little bit more research. But for now, let's move on to the first frame from the video. So the first frame that I've chosen is this one from right at the very beginning, and you can see that this has got a title card, Tom Grennan, A Little Bit of Love. This is a technique that we're used to seeing with films, and we are persuaded that this is more of a short film than a music video, partially because at the bottom of the screen it says a film by, and we've got the director's name. This suggests to the audience that this is going to be more than just your average pop indie kind of music video. There's going to be a story to it, much more of a narrative. It also tells us that Tom Grennan here is playing a character rather than just performing as Tom Grennan. Now, this is a technique that's been used in other Tom Grennan videos, in particular Don't Break the Heart, which is another song from this album, and as I said before, features Tom Grennan in a room in a flat. So these two videos perhaps are connected and perhaps create part of that star persona that I was talking about. Tom Grennan is sort of an everyman and someone who's experienced the same things as the listener. So the location that we see here is one that's featured throughout the video. A lot of his performance takes place in front of this window. Because we've got low-key lighting and some backlighting that appears to be coming from this window, a sort of ambient source, it gives a very shadowy effect, and a lot of the time Tom Grennan is in this silhouette. Maybe that adds to the mood of the video and the mood that he's feeling, this sort of desperation. Certainly his performance suggests a kind of desperation, emotion, you know, a clear attempt to kind of make his love understand how he feels. And that's reinforced a lot of the time by the camera. There's a lot of canted angles. We see him from all different angles, which creates a slightly chaotic feel. And there's also a lot of tracking in and out, fast speeds, fast zooms into him. So we've got a real mishmash of camera work that really reinforces the feelings of the character, and also Tom Grennan's energy, just this powerful energy in delivering the lyrics of the song. The low-key lighting and the sort of warm colour palette, I think, goes to create a sort of vintage look to the video. And I think this reinforces Tom Grennan's style and again his persona, particularly because he tends to wear a lot of kind of vintage knitwear, vintage tracksuit. He's got a particular style, someone who obviously is embracing the past in terms of his look. In the video we've got a number of different binary oppositions, and in particular interior versus exterior. Here in the interior it's dark and it's moody, but it's also quite cosy and secure. The exterior is often bright and vibrant, but it also suggests danger at times. The interior also changes in its styling, so here we can see there's very few props, a lamp, a sofa, but later in the video we see more plants and more kind of items filling up the frame. And this comes as the character reaches a decision not to commit the crime that they've been paid to do, and perhaps suggests a sort of resolution and a more kind of peaceful way of living. For my second shot, I've chosen one of those exterior shots that I was talking about, and this really does create a binary opposition to what we see inside in the interior shots. It's much more vibrant, it's much more colourful, it's got a brighter colour palette, and even Tom Grennan's outfit is brighter. In terms of the location, it's perhaps slightly less chaotic than the interior shots. Certainly the building looks quite uniform. However, Tom Grennan is slightly off-centre, so it does give a slightly unbalanced feel. And the camera is a low-angle shot, but again, only slightly low angle. So again, it just feels slightly odd on the eye. The location itself is a council estate where working class Londoners might live. This is what I think Baudrillard is talking about when he talks about hyper-reality, because anyone that's ever lived on a council estate will tell you that they don't look like this. This is particularly neat and tidy, there's no people around, there's no rubbish. And so it's a kind of sanitised version, and something that we're used to seeing over and over again in the media. So this hyper-reality is something that we may not be able to tell apart from the real thing. Because it's a council estate, it might suggest that the video is going to be about some of the struggles that face the working classes, and that's certainly something we see Tom Grennan's character struggling with. Money worries and getting into problems with gangs form part of the narrative. Grennan's performance is similar to those interior shots. He makes a lot of movement, he looks frustrated, he looks desperate. Here we can see him pointing at his head, and I think that links to the lyrics, I've got voices in my head. And so there's that idea of mental health and kind of dealing with uncertainties and not necessarily trusting your own opinions after a breakup. But this is a really interesting representation of masculinity, because traditionally in the media men are represented as strong and powerful and never vulnerable in any particular way. But here he is admitting that he's really struggling to cope with what's gone on. So we're seeing a representation here of masculinity that avoids kind of toxic representations and goes against stereotypes. Tom Grennan would have been well aware of debates about toxic masculinity, because it's been something that's been quite topical in recent years. And despite showing a sort of softer side, a more emotional side here, he does behave in a very sort of masculinised way at some points in the video. For example, when he turns to violence and crime in order to solve his money worries. However, overall, this is a positive representation of masculinity in that it's opening debates and raising questions about what it is to be male, what it is to feel that responsibility for others, what it is to feel pressure, and how you might cope with a breakup. We see his vulnerable and softer side. Because Tom Grennan is performing the song, he kind of narrates what's going on in the storyline. So he gets maximum amount of time on screen by being the narrator, but also a participant in the narrative. And there's also a sense of humour in the narrative itself. So we're seeing different sides to Tom Grennan, which again goes to establish him as a credible musician. For frame 3, I've chosen one of the frames that really does demonstrate this humour. Here we can see a two-shot of Tom Grennan's character and his brother hugging. The body language suggests they're really close and there's a lot of fun that goes on between them. The whole storyline is very different to what the lyrics would suggest. So the storyline is about teaching the little brother to swim so that he can achieve his dreams. And this goes against the stereotypical music video that is about boy and girl breaking up. It avoids any of those kind of longing looks, that kind of wistful staring out the window, and actually illustrates a completely different idea. There are some links between the visuals and the lyrics though, with the line swimming in the deep end. We can't see it here, but we can see it in the smaller frame that I've put on the screen. That whole preparation, learning to swim, obviously is a link to that lyric, even though the meaning is different. The mood here is fun. Even though Tom Grennan has all of these pressures, he's willing to sacrifice everything for his little brother so that he can achieve what he wants. And there's a real sort of camaraderie between them. They are typical brothers, mucking around, play fighting, and here, you know, that family connection where he will do anything for his little brother. If we were being critical of this, we might argue that this is a romanticised idea about family and brotherhood, and that the relationship between the two of them is rather sugar-coated. What we do get a sense of is the representation of youth and the idea that children, young people are reliant on adults around them to protect them, to provide for them, that their emotions are simplistic and that they're easy to please. We could argue that this is a coming of age narrative. We can certainly see that in the title card at the beginning, which is reminiscent of other coming of age films. But here the little brother learns to swim, learns to follow his dreams, we assume, but more importantly, Tom Grennan learns about responsibility and how to deal with pressure and stress. So by the end of the music video, there is more positivity and a sense that they're going to approach life differently. So the frames that I've chosen don't actually come right at the start of the narrative. The narrative starts with a reaction shot from Tom Grennan looking at a violent act that's happening, and then we sort of flash back to the earlier story. So we've got a kind of circular narrative, we've got a non-linear narrative. Of course, the way that music videos deal with narrative is unusual anyway, because they've got such a limited time to put a story across. So we have this montage editing and hints at storyline, but lots for the audience to interpret. Having said all of that, this is a very simple narrative though, and easy to understand, but also really memorable for the audience. So I've chosen this frame because I think it contrasts really nicely with the previous ones that I chose, and creates that binary opposition between Tom Grennan as loving big brother and Tom Grennan as argumentative big brother and someone who's really under pressure. By showing these two different sides to Tom Grennan, we're getting different representations of masculinity, and we're being shown that masculinity is complex. And this feeds into David Gauntlet's theory, who suggests that the media offers us this range of representations for us to build our own identities on. This low-angle close-up shot really shows the emotion of Tom Grennan. It shows the feeling of being trapped by his working class roots and the situation that he finds himself in. So it really is about the pressure and the narrative coming to a head. This is a sort of turning point, a place where he starts to make a different decision. The shallow focus of the shot with the council houses looming in the background perhaps again reinforces this idea of him being trapped by his working class roots. So the final frame that I've chosen really had to be this rear view two shot of Tom Grennan and his brother standing by the edge of the river, deciding whether to jump in, and that creates enigma because we're wondering about what happens next. Do they survive? Is he able to swim? What happens? But it does give us a sense of hopefulness for the future. The suggestion that he's getting away from those working class roots and those working class stresses and strains. Again, we've got that link to swimming in the deep end. He really is in deep water now, but it's seen as a very positive thing. This wide shot allows us to see the location, which is very different to the locations that we've seen earlier, and gives a sense of space and openness. The claustrophobia of the council houses is gone, and again there's much more positivity for the future. What we're also able to see is a lot of Tom Grennan's body. We can see underneath that vest he's very muscular. We haven't seen much of his body elsewhere, but in some of his other videos he does appear to be wearing a lot less clothes. So he is sexualised to some extent, and there's a sense of voyeurism. We're looking on his body and perhaps finding that appealing. So that ends the narrative, them jumping into the water. But the actual video ends with a still image of Tom Grennan and the little brother sat in the paddling pool with all the money hanging up behind them. It's a much more stylised image and brings some of those interior props into the exterior. We've also moved from daytime into nighttime. So again, more of those binary oppositions and more of a sense that this is a music video, a product, rather than reflecting real life. So it brings us back to what the purpose is of this media product. So there we have 5 frames from Tom Grennan's Little Bit of Love. I hope you found that useful. Why not choose 5 of your own as part of your studies? Thanks for watching. Bye bye.